Have you ever noticed the more seriously you take life, the heavier it starts to feel? Like every small mistake becomes a failure, every delay feels like defeat. Somewhere along the way, you stop living and start performing. We are taught early that seriousness equals success. You must have a plan. You must be disciplined. You must be focused. And those things are good until they start suffocating you. Because what happens when you turn every part of your life into a project to perfect? You forget to laugh. You forget to play. You forget that joy and ease are not signs of carelessness. They are signs of being alive. The irony is, the people who seem most alive rarely have it all figured out. They are messy. They are curious. They fail often and laugh about it. While the rest of us are busy managing our image, they are busy experiencing their life. The truth is, seriousness creates distance. It makes you watch your life from the outside instead of being inside it. You start worrying about how things appear, not how they feel. You stop enjoying the moment because your mind is already chasing the next one. Have you ever caught yourself rehearsing what to say before a simple conversation? That is what happens when seriousness takes over. You lose your natural rhythm. Every word becomes a performance. Every silence feels like tension. And even joy starts to feel like effort. We often think that taking things lightly means being irresponsible. But lightness is not the absence of care. It is the presence of trust. It means trusting that life will unfold even when you cannot control it. It means you can try your best without punishing yourself for not being perfect. Think about children. They don't need a reason to laugh. They do not sit down and plan how to play. They just live. They fall, they cry, they get up again, and 5 minutes later they are smiling. They haven't learned to take life so seriously yet. Maybe that is why they are happier than most adults. At some point, you learned to equate laughter with immaturity. You learned that ease meant laziness. And you started collecting rules about how to be someone worth respecting. But in that process, you began to forget what makes you feel alive. The world praises seriousness because it looks like control. But control and joy rarely live in the same place. Control gives you structure, but joy gives you meaning. Without meaning, structure is just a cage. So maybe the real question is not, how do I get my life together? Maybe it is, how do I let myself feel alive again? Sometimes you do not need another goal. You need a moment of stillness. You need to sit in silence and feel your breath return. You need to remember that life is not something you win. It is something you experience. There is something interesting about how seriousness builds slowly. It does not show up all at once. It creeps in quietly. It begins with one small expectation you place on yourself. Then another. Then another. Soon, your whole life becomes a checklist of things you believe you must achieve to feel worthy. You start treating rest like a reward instead of a need. You treat joy like a luxury instead of a birthright. You treat mistakes like disasters instead of stepping stones. And before you notice it, your mind becomes a place where nothing you do feels good enough. Most people do not realize that this seriousness is learned. You picked it up from teachers, from parents, from society, from the fear of being left behind. You watched others take life seriously, and you assumed that was the correct way to live. But you never questioned who benefits from that heaviness, because it is rarely you. There is a psychological pattern called hypervigilance. It is when your brain constantly scans for threats, not physical threats, but emotional ones. Judgment, failure, embarrassment, disapproval. When you live in a serious state for too long, you slip into hypervigilance without realizing it. Your nervous system treats life like a battlefield. Your mind becomes a guard tower. Your heart stays tense because it is always waiting for something to go wrong. Yet you were not built to live that way. Your body is designed to experience cycles of expansion and relaxation. Lightness, stillness, curiosity, play. These states are not childish. They are healthy. They are how humans reset their emotional rhythms. When you return to lightness, you reconnect with flow. Flow is the state where you stop trying so hard that you begin to move naturally. It is the feeling of being fully present without forcing anything. Artists feel it. Athletes feel it. Children feel it. You used to feel it too, before you learned to tighten yourself into seriousness. One of the biggest misconceptions is that seriousness makes you responsible. But responsibility simply means responding to life with awareness. You can be aware and still be joyful. You can be grounded and still be lighthearted. You can be committed and still be playful. Playfulness does not reduce your strength. It reveals it. Life does not demand heaviness from you. You learned the heaviness. You can unlearn it. And the unlearning begins the moment you observe how tightly you have been holding everything together. That observation creates space. And in that space, ease begins to return, like a breath you did not know you were holding. There is a line in Eastern philosophy that says, when you stop chasing, you start arriving. And it makes sense. The more you chase happiness, the further it runs, because happiness was never hiding. It was waiting for you to stop running long enough to notice it. Psychologically, seriousness activates a constant state of vigilance. Your brain stays alert, scanning for what might go wrong. And when that happens, even small pleasures get filtered out. You start missing sunsets because you are checking your to-do list. You skip laughter because you are afraid of looking foolish. You even stop celebrating progress because it never feels like enough. But your nervous system needs rest to feel joy. It needs safety to feel ease. When you stop taking every moment as a test, your body softens. Your thoughts slow down, and suddenly you start feeling connected again. The truth is, playfulness is not a distraction from growth. It is how growth happens. Creativity, learning, love, all of them require lightness. You cannot love deeply if you are too busy being correct. You cannot create freely if you are too afraid to fail. You cannot live fully if you are constantly trying to prove your worth. So what if you allowed yourself to take things a little less seriously? What if you stopped judging yourself for not being where you thought you would be? What if, instead of trying to control every outcome, you simply showed up with curiosity? It might sound small, but that shift changes everything. When you stop forcing life to make sense, it starts to. Because you are no longer blocking the flow with constant resistance. You become open to wonder again. You start noticing beauty in ordinary moments. You laugh more often, even when things are imperfect. Some people call this mindfulness. Others call it surrender. But whatever name you give it, it feels like coming home. You realize that you do not need to constantly prove your value. You realize that you are allowed to breathe, even when things are uncertain. And you realize that the point of life was never to win at it. The point was to feel it fully. If this speaks to you, maybe share it with someone who has been carrying the same weight. Because sometimes all someone needs is a small reminder that they can let go. And if you take one thing from this, let it be this. You do not have to earn your right to rest. You do not have to apologize for wanting joy. And you do not have to keep performing to deserve love. You are already allowed to laugh at the small things. You are allowed to fail and still feel proud. You are allowed to live without knowing what is next. Seriousness may keep you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. Joy is what sets you free. So the next time life feels heavy, do not ask what you should fix. Ask what you can release. Ask what you can laugh about. Ask what you can do just for the sake of feeling alive again. Because life will never stop being unpredictable. You can either meet it with tension or with trust. You can either keep performing or start participating. And maybe, when you finally stop taking it all so seriously, that is when you start to live.